into the webinar, get through the information, and hopefully also engage in a little bit of conversation about this topic, because I'm sure it's something that we'd all like to actually talk about rather than only hear me talking about it. So if you've just joined, this is Fostering a Positive Body Image in Children, how to encourage a healthy relationship with food and bodies, or children's bodies. And it's sponsored by the University of Minnesota Extension Center for Family Development. My name is Abby Gold. I'm a health and nutrition extension specialist, and I'm housed out of the Department of Food Science and Nutrition on the St. Paul campus. So welcome, and I'm going to get started. So if you have the need to have the closed captions running while you're watching the webinar, you can find the closed caption button at the bottom of your Zoom window. And depending on your device, you may have to hover over the bottom of your screen. If you don't see the closed caption button, try looking for the button with 3 dots that says More. And then once you find the captions button, click on it and it toggles to the captions on or off. So also, I'm interested in learning why you're here today, like what interested you about this topic. And so if you just want to pop in the chat, a couple words or sentence or two about your interest in this topic, go ahead and do that. I can see my chat screen, so it would be great to see what you're all thinking about before I launch into the topic. So Bonnie says that a lot of parents are interested in the topic. She's an educator, struggling with weight, having your own children, father of a teenage boy. They're flying by me. So lots of really great reasons, mostly working with kids, whether they're your own kids or kids that you serve in your work capacity. Worried about family members with body image issues. Positive holistic parenting. Worried about the digital world and media literacy. Trying to break cycles and create positive narratives around food. Okay, thank you. Some really great reasons to join. The next is just a brief poll, and Sherry's going to stick that up for you. I'm interested if you're coming into the webinar for personal use or professional use or both. So Sherry, if you want to start the poll. Well, maybe I can launch the poll.
No, it's launched.
It is launched?
It's done. I'm sharing it now.
Oh, okay.
Results.
I can't see it, so.
Okay. There were 63% for personal use, 9% for professional use, and 29% for both.
Okay, great. So mostly personal. So let me tell you a little bit about myself before I launch into talking about this really important topic. My name is Abby Gold, and I already said I'm a health and nutrition extension specialist. I have a deep interest in connecting agriculture and health and food systems. That's kind of an overarching thing that I do in extension, but I'm also really interested in understanding how we look at food from a cultural perspective. And so here's a picture of me at the Red River Farmers Market in Fargo. I just demonstrated the creation of making your own homemade sauerkraut, which is another interest that I have. And so I started out my career as a dietitian working for, and Krista says she's in Fargo, yay. I started out my journey as a dietitian working for the Women, Infants, and Children program, and really kind of getting grounded in that whole caregiver parent perspective around helping our young children, our toddlers and infants, really learn some great, eating habits that would take them through the rest of their lives. And one of those foundations for me was breastfeeding. And I'm not going to talk about breastfeeding today, but I really felt like for me, that was kind of a central thing that I wondered about, like, how do children learn to eat, and how do they have a lifelong healthy attitude about it? And so a lot of this is from personal experience for me, but also from the research and the learnings that I've had over my years. And I also want to thank my dietetic intern from last fall, Katie Dozie, who helped me put this presentation together. So what I want to know before we start with some key concepts is, what are some of the initial ideas that you have that could help promote positive body image in children? And if you'd like, could you please place some of your ideas in the chat, and I'll try to read through them as they come in. So what are some initial ideas you have that could help promote positive body image in children? Because I'm sensing there's also probably a lot of expertise in the room right now. So don't refer to yourself as fat. Food is fuel. Eat all the colors. Listen to your stomach. Focus on health, not weight. Any more? Talk nicely to yourself and about others in terms of body weight. Graphics and visuals tell a big story about our attitudes. We talk about being healthy and strong and emphasize that you can be any size and be a healthy, strong person. Now, talk in terms of energy, not healthy or junk food. No. Change the way the entire family eats instead of just one person. Yeah. So if there is a need in a family for a dietary change, it's good to involve the whole family. Point out stereotypes or unhealthy eating. Use body neutral language. Discourage using negative descriptors. Snacks and candy are okay. We can always eat those. Challenge negative stereotypes. All right, that's all. I'm going to move to the next slide now, because I think there is a lot, like as I expected, there's a lot of expertise in the room already. So there's three main points that I want to get across today with fostering a positive body image in children. First is role modeling. Second is choosing our words. And three is teaching children about media literacy. And so first, we're going to focus on role modeling. And I think for this presentation, that's probably the bulk of the presentation, is this kind of concept of role modeling. So I want to focus on three things here, which is understanding our own biases and being mindful of the negative talk about ourselves and others. practicing intuitive eating for ourselves, and recognizing how restrictive dieting and creation of food rules can also influence children, and they observe us in doing those things. And then number 3 is participating in movement. And notice I don't say exercise, but just in movement that you and your family and the people around you find enjoyable. So, oh, I love the things are still coming into the chat, and I love seeing all those things. I like the one about food is morally neutral. I do like that. Thank you, Britta. All right. So I'm not sure. I sent out a kind of a message earlier this morning about 10 o'clock. And I'm not sure if you all got it because it didn't come back to me. But I'm wondering if anybody had a chance to do this implicit bias test about weight that comes from the Harvard Weight Implicit Association test. Did anybody have a chance to do that? If you could just pop yes or no. Okay, yes. Okay, awesome, yay. And it didn't take very long, hopefully. And even if you didn't get to do it, you can do it later because I put the link in the presentation, which you'll get after today. I'll send out this presentation. But basically what this test shows over, with many people is they're seeing an increase in obesity and anti-obesity bias in the United States. And the Harvard Weight Implicit Association test is a reliable and valid test that can measure this unconscious weight bias. So, and it's also kind of fun to take, a little bit challenging. So I can't see I don't know why, but I have another poll for this. So if you were able to take the test, did you find the answers surprising? And or was it what you expected about yourself? And Sherry's going to open up the poll. Let me know if it works, Sherry, because I can't see it. And then there's only 2 questions.
Yes, I opened it up.
Awesome. So are they coming in? I'm not sure how many people got to take it, but
Yeah, we're up to 82 people have answered, so I'll let it go for a little bit longer.
okay. Yeah, so what's the majority, like where are we at, Sherry, with the answers?
18%, I was surprised. 16%, the results represented what I thought, and 66%, I did not take the test.
Okay, thank you. So like I said, I'll send you the link to after today, and you can go ahead and take it if it interests you. And Sherry also popped it into the chat. So this takes you through a little bit of what it'll look like when you enter into the website. So you'll have to go to the very bottom and click I wish to proceed after reading through their preliminary information. And then you choose, if you want, you can choose these other ones too to take, but the one that we're going to talk about and kind of reflect on is the weight one. And so you click in there and you can take the test. And so basically for the big answers for everybody, they're seeing that there's a strong automatic preference for thin people compared to fat people in the population of people that take the test. And so it kind of shows that we as a society are really have a bias against people who are overweight. And we really have to start thinking about reframing our ideas about weight. And what this comes down to is self-talk. I really always think that that's kind of a way to change your mind about something, because thoughts are habits, and self-talk, if we can make self-talk a habit on the thinking about something in a different way or in a new way, eventually we start absorbing those different thoughts. So I made a list of things that I thought would be good kind of replacement thoughts about weight bias. And these include things like weight is not a personal success or failing. Weight is controlled by hormones. So there are two hormones that affect satiety and hunger, and those are called leptin and ghrelin. And so it's a physical thing about the way we eat and when we actually feel full or satiated. And weight is also controlled by the environment and the foods around us. So if there are lots of high calorie, high sugar, possibly high fat foods that surround us, and if food is around us all the time, which it is, it's ubiquitous in our environment, that is influencing us as a population to, I'm not talking about the individual in this case, as a population, I'm talking about the population. So weight is controlled by the environment, what's around us. Weight is not who a person is, just like other physical aspects of humans. We don't know a person's circumstances in life when we see them. So if we see somebody and we have a judgment about them in our mind, we have to replace that thought with perhaps saying, I don't know this person. I don't know what this person's life is like and their circumstances. And so also finally using terms like fat about others when we're around children can be and is stigmatizing, and children absorb that. So all of this is sort of saying, we have to kind of work on ourselves when we're around our children and be mindful of our own thoughts before we say something and about a negative about another person. And we do this by our own self-talk and changing our own minds. So the second part of role modeling is really about how we eat ourselves, and so what children see. And then, right, so Shelby writes in, I get that fat can be stigmatizing when talking about others, but some people self-identify as fat. And so that is for them to share with you, and that's totally fine too. So, but it is a very individual thing then. So it's really about what a person prefers, right? So having those conversations and being open-minded to them is what's important to share with our children. So there's always a gray area. It's not black and white. So I'm sorry if I meant that, but it is a gray area. I acknowledge that. So the second part of this role modeling is just how we eat ourselves and intuitive eating. And when we engage in restrictive dieting and creation of food rules, our children observe that. So I always think it kind of comes down to helping children try new things and try novel things in their environment so that they can appreciate a wide variety of foods. And then when people we know this through people's environments, when they can eat a wide variety of foods, if they have them available, children are more likely to enjoy food and see it as something that is a positive in their lives. So I kind of teach, I have 3 kids, and I always like to teach them to be adventurous, not just about food, but about a lot of things in their lives, to take chances, to be a little adventurous. in a safe way. But so what do you do if you want to stick some ideas in the chat? What do you do to help your children try novel things in life, whether it's food or other things? Feel free to stick some ideas in the chat. How do you encourage adventurousness? Present options, bribing, sigh. Offer new foods with safe foods, or things, safe foods being things they already know about and think they like. The one bite rule with any new food. Yep. Tasting everything. Reminding children that new things are, oops, it went by too fast, aren't bad, but just different. Try to encourage to at least try something new and it's health, and let them know it's healthy. Letting kids at the grocery store pick something out that they'd like to try. Okay, I'm seeing a lot about the one bite rule. Create a story about food that perhaps pirates or Power Rangers like. So role models like this kind of food. Try a new food and it might taste good. For older kids, we remind them that getting familiar with a wider variety now means they'll be ready for adventures as adults. Oh, okay, here's one I can relate to. I offer food I'm eating. Some enjoy new things more than others. So I have a story about my mother. She used to encourage me and my siblings to try new foods by saying that only adults can eat this food. This is only for adults. So things like avocados or lamb. She used to say, nope, nope, this is only for adults. And naturally, I would want that food because I'd want to be like her. So I never actually tried that on my kids because my kids were pretty adventurous, and but I think sometimes kids want what they can't have. So making it something special might work a little bit, especially for a little bit those picky eaters. So what I've been thinking a lot about is letting your intuition kind of take over when it comes to food, and trusting your gut and what it's telling you. So there's a lot about the recognizing your hunger and satiation or fullness cues. And I've always loved this term, hara hachibu, which is a Japanese term meaning eat until you're 80% full. So, and I see Sarah put in the chat, I've read the one bite rule is not great as it teaches your child to not really listen to their bodies. And so that could very well be the case. And so the most important thing is, yes, teaching our children to listen to their bodies and listen to when they're hungry, and feeding children when they're hungry, not when they're starving, but just a little bit hungry, and making sure the meals and snacks are provided when it in a regular time manner. And kind of gauging, so this concept of 80% full is another way of saying it is 3/4 full. And so you're not like full to the point where food is coming up your throat, which we tend to maybe gorge on food sometimes, but on a regular, which is fine every once in a while, but on a regular basis, kind of touching in with how we're feeling and doing that probably during each meal. How do I feel now? Do I need to take another bite, or am I good for now? And so teaching this mindfulness-based eating, which is a fairly new concept, and kind of goes along with this big effort around being mindful with many things that we do in our lives. So the other thing I really, and this is a little bit kind of, regimented, and of course I believe in having a lot of flexibility, but scheduling family meal times, eating at the table, and limiting distractions so that everybody in the family can stay in touch with how they're feeling while they're eating. So having a no phones rule, that might be a good rule versus the 1 bite rule. I'm not sure. But of course, different things work in different families. But we did have a no phones at the table rule in my family. And that seemed to work, but it didn't carry over into adulthood, unfortunately. So how do we promote intuitive eating in children? Teach children how to listen to their bodies and honor their hunger and fullness. So a lot of this is where I kind of want to talk about the food rewards. This is where we might say to our child, if you eat everything on your plate, you'll get dessert. And then dessert becomes a reward, and the food that they're eating that's on their plate isn't as enticing. Or they might eat everything on their plate just to get the dessert. So kids should, have a dessert no matter what. If you feel like it's a healthy dessert and you want to provide it to them, it shouldn't, in my mind, be a reward. So teaching children how to listen to their bodies. Are you full? Can you take one more bite? If not, it looks like you tried everything on your plate. And the other thing is rewarding your children for eating something that may be new to them isn't something that you probably need to do. And it's simply maybe a question about, how was that for you? Did you like that new food? What did you think of it? And rather than saying, good job, you ate that. I used to like to say to my kids, if they ate everything, wow, you were really hungry today. So as you see, I have a few little statements there, some for older children, some for younger children. So you were hungry. What's your tummy telling you? Try one bite, tell me what you think. And I really like this idea of incorporating gentle nutrition and focus on what you can add to their diet that's healthy rather than what you can take away, So the other flip side of the reward is the punishment. So if you don't eat everything on the table, you can't have your chocolate milk. So it's more about what are the healthy things that you can add to their food repertoire, rather than what are the things that you're going to take away from their repertoire. So the final thing that I want to talk about in terms of role modeling is participating in movement that you might find enjoyable with your family. And I found this great resource called Active for Life, and the website is on the bottom of the picture here. And really, I love this kind of sentiment about physical literacy begins when parents encourage movement in infancy, and it develops throughout the lifetime and can be a gift that's shared between generations. I love that sentiment. And so it's about finding activities that the kids enjoy and you enjoy to keep your bodies moving. And I'm not going to say more about that because sort of focusing on food and nutrition today, but you'll have access to this website, and it has some great activities for younger children, really about playtime and playing with children versus like engaging in some formal physical activity program per se. Okay, and so we already touched on this second aspect of fostering a positive body image in children, which is like choosing our words and what we say to them, and how children and how intentional we are with our words. And so I always think about this, especially with my daughter, and now she's 21, and my son is 27, and just seeing them, you know, as your kids kind of grow up and how their bodies change, and like really trying not to talk about their bodies and what their bodies look like to you, you know. It's really, it's hard. It's really, really hard. But for me personally, it takes thinking twice before I say something to them about their food choices and eating habits, or about how their bodies look. So so really being mindful also about commenting on their appearance, and then avoiding labeling foods as good or bad, which I've seen in the comments, and that's I think so important. I mean, food, I look at food as simply nourishment, no matter what it is. And if we want to eat one of those really good cookies that we got at Costco the other day, I'm thinking about those Grand Galette cookies that are like, I call them cookie crack. I'm going to eat one of those, and it's good. It's not good or bad. It's just good all around. It's neutral. So food is morally neutral, like Britta, to quote Britta from up above in the comments. So the last part about this whole thing today is really talking about food media literacy and how we can engage our children as they go through their lives and understand media and how to judge media. And I saw this from Health Media Literacy. It's a website. Health media literacy is a 21st century essential skill. And I really believe that. And health media literacy is inextricably linked to media literacy and social justice. So teaching our children media literacy allows them to critically evaluate the content that's being shared via social media and other platforms. And they become less susceptible to harmful diet culture and messages. And I'll just give you an example of my own kids. When I sit next to them and we'd watch television, and they used to have commercials on TV. Remember those days? So whenever the fast food ads would come on, and they would look the food would look so good and so enticing. And here I'm going to say that I don't really want my children to eat fast food. I'm just going to admit that. So I would say things like to them, like, you know, that's not real. You know that they're doing things to make that food look really good, but that's not how it looks when you get it at the restaurant. Things like that, so that they can look at it and be critical of it, rather than just taking what they're seeing at face value. And so when you're encouraging children to use analytical skills to critically examine media messages, they can create their own impressions and then make their own informed decisions. See, we have a lot of things coming into the chat. And Britta also put into the chat, thanks Britta, the Ellen Satter Institute. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that in the coming up. So, but basically, with media literacy, we want to be able to access the information that is credible, and we want to analyze the ability to interpret the food marketing information to understand how, like I was talking about, color of food, the way food is presented is sort of a, like makes it just look really enticing so that it's appealing to the viewer. So it might not be real. We want to create food messaging that is an alternative to maybe what is seen on the, in the mass media about food and nutrition. And we want to provide alternative messages about packaging and processed foods that goes around what is being sold to us. And we want to then be able to judge the food marketing information and apply critical analysis skills. And that takes time and a lot of discussion with our children about those things. So Britta put into the chat something about Ellen Satter. And a long time ago, she came up with the notion of this division of responsibility between parents and children and caregivers and children in terms of what is the caregiver's responsibility and what is the child's responsibility. And as you can see here, the only responsibility the child has is to eat. And they get to decide what they eat and how much they're going to eat based on their hunger and satiation cues that you have helped them recognize. The caregiver's responsibility is simply to provide foods, to cook the food, to offer meals and snacks, and to kind of treat food in just a nourishing way, not as a reward or a punishment, and encouraging novel foods. So encouraging novelty and adventurousness so that kids grow up learning to eat a wide variety of foods and their palates are mature as they age, or their palates mature as they age and they can accept new experiences. And the thing there that I didn't yet talk about is not being a short order cook. Melanie, you asked a question, up until what age, as my son actively cooks with me and really loves and enjoys it? Of course, that's of course, yeah, totally. That's awesome. I love that idea. And that's another, I mean, involving your children, of course, involving your children in the food, all aspects of the food, procurement, recipe development, cooking, that's great. Gardening, if you like to garden and they will garden with you, all those things. But of course, as the caregiver or parent, you are ultimately providing the food. But the thing that I was about to say was to avoid being a short order cook, which means that your children eat what you prepare for them, or if in the case of Melanie, she prepares her food with her child, that's wonderful. And making something special for them, unless there's a medical need for that, really creates a kind of a dynamic where the kids are kind of able to kind of tell you what's going on and what to do. And you're eating one thing on the table and they're having another thing. And it kind of reinforces that idea that they don't have to engage in the food that you've prepared, and that they're always going to get something that they know that they like, and that they don't have to kind of participate in what everybody else is eating in the family. So when my kids were growing up, we had one meal, and I always made sure that there was something good that they liked. That was, and then if there was something new, we'd pair it with something that they were familiar with. So hopefully that kind of hits a nerve for some people, and it rings as true for you. And then, so I want to touch a little bit on this aspect of body positivity in men and children, because there was a question coming in about that. And I understand that right now there actually isn't a lot in the research literature about men and their children, and what we understand about the influence of fathers and men on body image in daughters especially, but it's especially important for all genders. But there was one study that a woman researcher did from Arkansas, Ramsayer Winter, and she talks about fathers. She did interviews with 30 fathers and analyzed the interviews. And one of the things that she said is fathers notice that their daughters can take negative statements about their own bodies and positive statement about other people's bodies to heart. So the idea here is that fathers have just as big of an influence on their children's attitudes and their children's body image as as anybody else in the family. And so if you want more information about that, I recommend the National Eating Disorders .org website. They had a nice article there about body habits, body positive dads. So, and how they can influence their daughters, especially daughters who are in in eating disorder treatment. So we have a little bit of time to kind of talk through some of these ideas and how, and there is a lot of people like in the room that I noticed who you have a lot of things that you're thinking about already. So I want to give you a little bit of time to talk to each other about that. And so let's take about 5 minutes, and Sherry's going to put you together in rooms of 3. Why don't you do that, Sherry? Or unless you've already set up rooms of 2, that's fine. And then we're just going to take 5 minutes and kind of go through and just talk about some of the strategies that you're hoping to incorporate into your lives, about the things that I talked about today or other things that you're thinking about. So let me know, Sherry, if we're kind of ready to go with that.
We're ready.
Okay. So I'll send out a broadcast message to everybody when we're going to come back. We lost quite a few people who went off to do their day. I just wanted to close up with a couple things. One, Sherry's going to put another poll in just to kind of see kind of what you're interested in and what kinds of strategies you're interested in kind of integrating into your life right now that we talked about. So if you want to pop that poll up, Sherry, of all the things that we talked about.
It's up.
Okay. All right, how are we doing?
There's still people answering.
Okay.
All right. Oh. For some reason I wasn't able to. It says somebody else. There we go. Said somebody else was doing a poll. All right. Can you see it now?
No,
No, okay, or you want to know what they said?
Yes,
Reframing my
please.
ideas about weight, 40%, practice intuitive eating, 62%, enjoying movement with children, 57%, choosing my words with children, 65%, fostering media literacy, 51%, and division of responsibility between caregivers and children, 30%.
Okay, great. So it seems like a lot of these ideas resonated with everybody that's in the room today. So that's really good. I put up a couple books that you might be interested in exploring, just a little bit more about intuitive eating and then raising an intuitive eater, which I think also goes back to ourselves and kind of checking in with our own intuition and how we feel when we eat, so we can pass that on to our children. And then I want to thank everybody for attending today and just seeing if there's any remaining questions that we can help answer. Okay, Britta talks about the new American Academy of Pediatrics and their guidelines for treatment of overweight and obesity in children. And I do have I share your concerns, and I think we're going to have to see how that plays out in the real world, because those guidelines have been around for a while, but still we don't have the capacity really to kind of play them out quite yet. So I think that's kind of my take on that. And if you want to learn more about the American Academy of Pediatrics overweight and obesity guidelines in children, I would just recommend you go out there, do a little Google search. It'll pop right up and you'll see what they're recommending from a clinical standpoint. So any other questions? You're welcome for adding a breakout session. Yep. And then I just wanted to also say that you get well-being points. In order to get the well-being points, you have to fill out the evaluation. And so Sherry's going to pop that link in the chat, and it'll also be sent to you when I follow up with an email. And here's the evaluation link. But here it is in the chat too. Shouldn't take you long to fill it out. And then I just want to also put a plug in for our upcoming webinars. We have a ton of them this semester and then through the summer. We've had a lot of really great, really great topics and a lot of interest in those topics. So, and you get 200 bonus points for attending. So thanks for attending today. And additional webinars can be found in our family development website. And we have lots of activity in social media. And I just want to summarize that today we talked about 3 really important concepts with our children: role modeling, choosing our words, and then teaching media literacy. Those are 3 critical pieces of helping to promote a positive body image in our children and other people's children as we care for them. So thank you for today. Bye-bye.